So before we get into the agenda, we'll just do a quick round of introductions, if that's all right. I'll start with my screen left to right as usual. And first up on my screen is Martin.
Hi, hello, I'm Martin from Keboola. I've been invited here to speak about Keboola use case. I'm head of professional services at Keboola. Hopefully you guys can hear me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Willy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Willy. I'm the project lead on Marquez, and I'm excited to see the demo that Keboola has. So.
And next up is John.
Hey guys, I'm John Thomas. I'm on the community management team at Astronomer. So I'm here just to kind of keep in touch with what's going on with the Marquez community and make sure that I can help out where it's necessary.
Thanks. Next up is Minkyu.
Yeah, I'm Minkyu, and software engineer at Astronomer, and I'm also a contributor to Marquez and very much interested in this meeting.
Thank you. Next is Julian.
Hello, I'm Julian. I'm the chief architect at Astronomer and also the project lead for Open Lineage.
Thanks. Next is Ross.
Hey, I'm Ross. I work on the community team at Astronomer with Michael and John, and I'm here to help.
And Connor.
Hey, also with Astronomer, I'm a product manager here where we use Marquez, and I am also very interested to see Martin's demo.
And Peter.
Hi, I'm Peter. I'm a software engineer at Astronomer, and I'm a contributor to Marquez.
Raphael.
Yes, hello. I'm a CRE engineer here at Astronomer, and I'm just here to learn more about this product and watch the demo and help out our customers however we can.
Thank you so much. And I'm Michael, and I'm at Astronomer also, developer relations, and I coordinate these meetings. Why don't I hand it off to you, Willy, for some announcements.
All right, great. Thanks, Michael. Okay, so a few things to note. One, Marquez stickers are still available. So if you haven't grabbed yours, head out to astronomer.io, datakin-swag. So you can pick up, I think you could do Open Lineage and also Marquez. So if you want to kind of market or be cool and put some stickers on your laptop, that'd be great. And as you can see now, I'm in a hotel room. I'm in Austin. So I gave a talk on automating airflow backfills using Marquez. So I'm at the Open Source Summit, and there's a lot of really cool projects that are being developed and around open source, especially Kubernetes and stuff. But they do have a data track. So I'm out here just talking about Open Lineage and Marquez. And one thing that's not on here, I think, Michael, you've been kind of pushing the effort on this, but we want to graduate Marquez to a top level project on LFAI and data. And I think there's a few checkboxes that are left. So just know that we're working on graduating the project and moving out of the incubation stage and onto a top level project.
Thank you, Willy. So why don't we move on to talk about this recent release? So it might look like it's a small release based on the number of additions and changes and fixes here, but this was actually a pretty big one, 23.0. So among the additions here is random database port mapping, which should alleviate a lot of headaches. So this means you no longer run into port conflicts if another application is using 5432. And that was from Ryan Hatter. So thank you, Ryan, for that. It was an update to the Docker Compose configuration. Another really big one is from Mike Collado, And that's the implementation of job parent hierarchy in the project. So we now have the ability to track parent-child relationships within jobs. More specifically, this enables job grouping to be constructed at query time by traversing the job hierarchy. And the namespace of a job is automatically inherited from its parent job.
And
Ultimately, oh, yeah, Willy?
I was just going to make a note on that because it is pretty significant. You know, the grouping that we have now is very much based off kind of naming conventions. So what we want to do is if a workflow, in an example like Airflow, if you trigger the DAG, just better group the different tasks that are associated with that DAG class. And same thing for databases. So, you know, what we want to do is be able to group tables to a database, and that's something we're working on as well. And just enhance the lineage API so that way grouping is a bit more explicit. So just want to make a comment on that. Mike Keboola has been doing some really amazing work on that. And there's details that link out to the design and the discussion if anyone's interested in sort of the implementation and the discussion that was ongoing.
Yeah, thank you. So 3 PRs, and his documentation of those additions is pretty detailed there. So do check those out. Among the changes in this release is a new default limit for listing data sets and jobs in the UI. So this should increase efficiency in the case of a large query. As Willy wrote in his PR, a more ideal approach would be to introduce paging, but for now we've got a reasonable new default limit of 25 to work with. So thank you to all our contributors for their work on these and our other releases or future releases. We're very grateful. With that, just let me direct you to these links on the bottom here for more information if you're curious. And I'd like to turn it over to Martin, if I could. So I'll stop sharing and then you can share whatever you'd like to.
All right, let's pick up the right screen, eh? Hopefully this one is the right one. Doesn't like it. Okay, this should work. Do you see the presentation?
Yes.
You do, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Lovely. Okay. It's a little bit funky what I do see on my screen, you know, in a call, but let's hope for it. Just scream if I'm showing the wrong one. Okay, so I wanted to present a story of of the integration of open lineage support within Keboola data platform. I do have a brief about our platform and then how what it actually means of the integration, and maybe for discussion item, some challenges, issues, or maybe open questions that I would like to discuss if possible. Let's move on. So we deliver modern data experience. What it actually means, it's a data stack as a service. We have been around for 10 years or maybe even more than 10 years. And it's all in one. That means that we do provide functionality for the whole data pipelines, from extractors, transformations, and by transformation, I mean different transformation engines at the same time, SQL, dbt now, Python, R, Julia, and some other transformation backends per customizations. We also provide something which we call writers. Nowadays, it's fashionable to call it reverse ETL, right? And this is thanks to our, let's say, component framework. Basically, we handle every single component with its own configuration. It's a Docker image in a nutshell, and we have hundreds of those different components out of the box. So this is how you would define a pipelines with all of those basic components. And you can orchestrate it or automate the whole processes within our platform. And with the orchestration comes the jobs, and hence this is why we are speaking today. And we also provide the environment to work with the data. That means, data science workbench, environments to have a safe workspaces for SQL, to design queries and such. And because it's underneath, under one single umbrella, so to speak, we do have that data governance, data discovery piece in there within the platform, with the data catalogs, data shares, and you get actually some nice bells and whistles with that. That means version control, user management, security, and such. And again, the data governance piece is the crucial piece of our platform. That means that we generate metadata, quite a lot of metadata about everything, and we also collect metadata, which delivers the users the observability, basically across the whole data platform. On the right side here on the slide, you can see the example of the UI for the job. So you can imagine the typical, UI-based representation of the job history with all the metadata and information for that job. Down there, which is not on the screenshot, is a full log of what was going on within the job. And what kind of metadata do we collect? I would say we could say machine-generated metadata, such as pipeline jobs, configuration versions, storage events, all the data loads, data unloads, including events about users looking at the preview of the data within our platform is being logged. And by user-generated metadata, which is also relevant here, are the descriptions for the tables, buckets, columns, but also descriptions for configurations of each component. So literally, we deliver documentation that lives alongside of the infrastructure setup, which lives with it, and it's always up to date because it changes as the infrastructure setup changes as well. And with the open lineage integration, our main motivation here was to offer custom data governance tool support, the ability for users to feed data to external tools, and with the whole promise of open lineage to be a language to speak with different tools, that was an easy pick to us to embrace. How we proceeded with that, and maybe we can discuss that a little bit later, but in a nutshell, we tested out Marquez. We really liked the interface. We really liked the whole promise of open lineage. And we have tested it out manually, basically calling APIs. At that time, it was job start, job end, and such, before changing to /lineage endpoint. And then from that test, first we offer a native integration with our own API, because our platform is very rich UI, but underneath everything is API. And we basically offer, or are offering, an API endpoint for open lineage information. And from there, we went a little bit further, where we offered a native Keboola component. So as we do have extractors from different systems and writers to different systems, such as databases, Salesforce, CRM tools, and such, we also have a feed or a component that is able to feed this open lineage information to a destination, to the endpoint that user selects. And obviously, because it's a component, it can be orchestrated every 15 minutes, every hour, once a day, as per customer request. And this is an automatic delivery of this metadata or job information to open lineage endpoint. In many cases, it would be Marquez. There is very low need for user configuration. It's only endpoint and the export time duration. We also support SSH for the authentication. I would love to see a little bit more support of the authentication in Marquez, maybe in the future. And it exports the full job information to that endpoint. And it allows then, as a result, it allows to observe the lineage in external tool, namely Marquez. And because it's a component, again, it has that native functionality of job tracking, of all the versioning and everything, which is given because it's a component within our platform. I might pause here. If there are any questions, if you guys want to ask a few questions, and then I can maybe jump in a platform and to see to show how it actually works, and then switch to Marquez to see the results.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Okay. So I do have a demo instance of, this is actually my personal project for some cases. This is how it looks. This is how the platform looks. This is a single project. I might clarify here, for majority of our customers, they use multiple projects, and this is how they separate different pieces of their infrastructure or their different pipelines. Maybe gold, bronze, silver. If you embrace this terminology, they can have different projects for different stages, or different teams do have different projects. And in this case, I'm just looking in a single project that is for my use. You can see that if you would add new component, we have a few hundreds actually. In this case, it's the public ones out of the box. You can imagine kind of like 5-trend-ish, approach. Plenty of components out of the box. Within the project, I do have already a pre-configured bunch of components, and I'm actually running them on a daily basis or hourly basis. And for this demo, I would like to go in a flows, which is our orchestrator, and I can show how maybe a little bit more complicated flow or could look like, different steps. And here you can see that I'm combining SQL, Python, Google Drive configuration, and then all been fed to Snowflake and also to Google Sheets. But my flow for this demo is very simple. I do have an extractor that basically gets some information, financial information. In this case, it's crypto pricing. I'm running it every hour, and I can go in that particular configuration. This one is a REST API using our generic extractor that can connect to everything, and I can run the component. This is what I'm doing manually, but obviously my flow is running it on hourly basis. So we can see here some manual runs. You can see here scheduled run, and here in this phase, this is actually that job that is running. I can see it in a list of jobs, and this is what you see within the platform. Here it's running all the metadata, who triggered that job, what was the start, what is the end, now it has finished. And if there is a result in a means of mapping, output mapping or input mapping, then you have your table. And this table already has the events collected and such. So I just run this job and extracted the data right in this table. So let me just manually trigger in this case. Obviously I would have it orchestrated, but let me go in our writer in OpenLineage, which is here, and I fork it today. I basically created a copy of that configuration, and I'm just asking, hey, just export me jobs that has happened in the last hour to this endpoint. I can run manually in this time the component. Normally it will be scheduled. And now it's just pushing the data to OpenLineage. I might actually, just for the curiosity, I might actually have a look on the log. Now it has created the Docker image. It's running our standard, procedure with the components. In the log, you can see that it has actually pushed that data to my endpoint. It actually pushed bunch of data or a bunch of events already, and it might actually finish in a bit. Here we go. So when I see it, when I have a look in the Marquez, I might search probably for that table. This is very simple, right? This is I'm running this, and it outputs the data in here, and my version history shows that I just send the data, I just outputted the data into this table. In a little bit more complex cases, which I showed before, I do have this iTunes app pricing tracking. I do see the full lineage in Marquez here. And that's a representation of my flow that user sees in here. So those are all the components that are being run, and each component is outputting the data into the storage. In this case, those, for instance, this is a SQL transformation that outputs it in those 4 tables, which can be represented in those 4 tables in here.
Hey, I think something I missed. In order to get that graph, the one that you just showed, did you have to include the open lineage export step in that particular workflow?
So, good question. So basically, in this case, what I do have here, metadata push for this project, and I'm pushing all the data every single hour into Marquez, and that's why you can see this one, which is the job that I haven't showed during this demo, but I'm actually feeding this data.
Okay, it would pick up any new, like if you went and added a new flow.
Yes.
Then when that metadata push runs, it'll pick that one up next time and so on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because what it does, it literally pushes all the jobs that we are tracking, which is everything. It pushes all the jobs within the time frame that I have in my configuration, and it pushes it to that endpoint.
I see. Yeah.
I actually kind of was surprised by the introduction of the parent job, because it might be very useful, because in our terminology we do have an orchestrator, right? And that orchestrator runs different phases and runs the jobs. So in our terminology, an orchestrator is a job itself, and it has, it's a parent job of multiple other jobs, right? So it might be actually useful to expand this functionality later on. So,
I was just going to say, amazing demo, or in this case, it's a live working example. And so in order to push that metadata, like for your customers, when do you spin up an instance of Marquez? Is it on demand? Do they have to like opt in, or just part of the stack?
So this goes back to our original motivation, which was, in the case of customer want to use a dedicated tool for data lineage or dedicated tool for data governance, we want to use the open lineage protocol to basically feed that data. We already have provided an API endpoint for all the jobs, all the configs. As I mentioned, everything is API driven. So they can customize it and they can build custom integration. But for us, open lineage is a very neat way how we can feed this information in a standardized form. And that's why we first jump on it and created the open lineage API endpoint, which anyone can grab data from there, or extract data from. And as a second step, we created a component that can feed data about the jobs proactively. So it's a push instead of pull to third-party systems. And to the original question of the Marquez and such, we actually we do have customers who have requested to play with that, to experiment and such. And this is a very neat and very streamlined way how we can basically tell them, by the way, if you have a Marquez, or if you want to start with Marquez, just use this component and off you go. You have a full integration out of the box, right? If customer needs some kind of dedicated one, Marquez would be our pick for the external tool for the lineage, because then we know that we have out of the box integration.
Right. I was just going to say, very cool. Thanks.
I wanted to maybe continue on discussing maybe some challenges or issues that I was able to collect. At this moment, we would love to expand the amount of information that we are able to push to Marquez, especially a little bit more metadata about the tables itself, themselves, about the component configuration, because literally in every single component, if you see here, let's say Google Analytics, right? So this component has, sorry, let me just jump in a little bit, less streamlined UI for the component. Every single component actually has a description. Every single component has the additional information, all the versions, versioning, all the diffs automatically being collected and available for users. And we would love to basically feed a little bit richer information, which is on us at the moment to expand the information that we are feeding to Marquez. Likewise, in the storage, this is the crypto table, I think. So, we have a full schema. You can define the description in user manner, very simple. You can just enter the descriptions, and we would love to feed that description as well. For instance, those are the table information, table events that we are collecting. So there's quite a lot that we could, how we could expand the information that we are feeding to Marquez to provide richer piece. With the challenges, I would say that I would love to be able to switch to lighter UI. We did have some feedback from some of the users basically saying, that they would prefer light UI for some more complicated pipelines. Is actually, according to them, better. Some further customizations by icons. If it would be easier to customize that, and by icons, I don't mean branding, but I mean maybe different icons for even components. So as you can see, every single component here has its own icon, right? So I think it would be nice if we could leverage that somehow and maybe provide a little bit richer, UI. I know that this is very nice, black-white-ish, but maybe it might help users to correlate more with what they see within our platform and what they see here, right? With the icons. There's one issue that I see. Maybe it's just our lack of understanding, but what we have embraced actually is the namespaces for each project. And here you can see that I'm actually feeding for this test instance to project information. All of those are test projects. But I would love if I could somehow have the connectivity or connection somehow between different namespaces, because what Keboola can do is we can actually create data shares between different projects. And by shares, we are heavily leveraging Snowflake data share. So it's virtual share between projects, no copy is needed. And in this way, different teams are sharing data between different Keboola projects without actually having to create some kind of database connections and stuff like that. They literally in the UI just click, I want to share this bucket as a data catalog with a team in data science. They click a button, and then in a data science project, they just say, okay, I want to use this data share that has been shared with me. And we would love to show this interconnection between those projects, aka namespaces, in here as well. So you would have a little bit more complete picture. And obviously, we would love a little bit further support of Open Lineage protocol in our other tools, Amazon Data Hub and other tools. We would really love to be the same easy integration as we have for Marquez, because what we see in some of our enterprise customers, they tend to use multiple tools to data discovery, data lineage, and such. And I believe that it might be beneficial to them to be able to feed data in different directions, the same data, and see the same way. So if we could speak the same language as was the original promise of Open Lineage, that would be wonderful. And last, just for a bit of fun, we still actually name this component as Open Lineage, but I would really love a rounded logo for that. At the moment, there is, unless I'm mistaken, there is no rounded logo, and I would really love here a little bit nicer logo than this.
I can get you a logo for that. Yeah, there's the one we use for our Slack community that's a little bit better for rounded. I can get that. I can get that to you.
Yeah,
Nice.
Ross, actually, I was looking for it yesterday. So we do have a rounded logo, but it's not in the artwork repository that has the logos on the Open Lineage.
Yeah, actually, instead of giving it to you, I'll post it somewhere. How about that?
Yes.
Works. Awesome. I'm open to any questions if you have any.
This is great. So are you interested in contributing some of those improvements on Marquez?
I would say, this is a loaded question. We would love to. At the same time, we are a product company. Obviously, our product is Keboola platform. We love different integrations. We do have our component, which we call component factory team, which produces components internally and maintain them. We have, as I mentioned, hundreds, and actually, if I'm not mistaken, 1,400 are public and private components. Once we expand this team, we might be able to, put some resources in. At the moment, we are kind of stretched of what we would, with the prioritization of the components, and there's always a request from some of our customers for a new component. So it would be kind of challenging at the moment, but I would love in the future, obviously.
I guess as a follow-up to Julian's question, have you been able to maybe open issues so that way we could capture some of this work that you've been talking about? Because a lot of it makes a lot of sense. Specifically, the black versus white version of the UI. I know there's been a lot of discussion on, and maybe you have been involved, but I know someone.
I was. I was.
Yeah,
it was me.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, it was you. Okay.
Yeah.
So just having issues so we can add it to our backlog would be helpful. I know with the UI, we could do a lot more with customization, especially custom facets. So, you talked about how the description of fields and the types, OpenLineage currently supports that, but there's probably additional metadata that you want to attach to your data sets. So being able to have some way to process those custom facets and do maybe a very custom UI. I don't know if you do widgets or something, but ways that you could inject your code so that way you can display facets differently would be great. So, and the other one about namespaces. So being able to view lineage across namespaces. There was a issue I posted in the chat that was very, that was like a while back that we talked about, but I think that also makes a lot of sense. So what you're kind of outlining is amazing, and it would be great if we can put those in issues and start discussions there, and then that would help us to prioritize. So even though you might not have capacity today, maybe down the road you would. So it'd be helpful to at least capture that. And
okay,
that's all I wanted to say about it. But really amazing to see all the work that your team has been working on.
I would say I was quite amazed by how easy it was for us to actually put everything together here, because what was really helpful is that our platform is full API driven, and we do have standard operations of the jobs and metadata collection and such. So for us, it was basically, okay, if we provide an API endpoint that provides information about the job, what about providing different API endpoint that actually has a little bit different structure of the job, structure of the information about the job that conforms with the OpenLineage protocol? And then it was just a matter of creating a component that grabs our own API and shove it somewhere else, right? So I was quite proud on our tech team what they did.
And is your team using any integrations like Spark or anything else, or this is kind of like very custom? So you're using either Python or Java client for OpenLineage?
So we are sending it to API endpoint, and basically our component framework, how it works is that a component can be anything that is run within the Docker under circumstances of bundling the Docker in a proper way, and the platform handles the rest. Platform handles how the Docker runs, what is the performance of that. Platform handles how the data is being fed in and out within the storage jobs and all of those nice things, and that's why we can collect so much information, right? So whatever you write within that Docker image in any language, that's up to you, and in this case, I think that our tech team uses PHP. For some components, for some Go, for some components, some different languages, Java, some databases. And component factories as kind of like my team as well. We are solely using Python because of the simplicity of that language. So, it's a mixed bag, but for us, it does not matter that much because that's the platform spiel to make sure that it runs. And it's more on just make sure that the component runs, does what it's supposed to do, and outputs data or communicates the data in a correct way. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. So it looks like you're constructing the open lineage event and adding details there to send to the back end, whether it's Marquez or something else.
Yes, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very cool.
You might have already said this, Martin. I apologize if so, but do you have any of your customers that are actively using it already?
We had customers actually testing it out, but in those cases, it was more on an enterprise level. That means that a decision is something that is, in a little bit longer run, and it entails, even a politics internally. So sometimes it's more about to provide an ability to test it out, to try it out, to see whether it sticks, or what are the features that are must-haves, and what is their preference. At the moment, we don't have anything in production, only in like testing environment. But again, we are not in a business of providing, we are not providing Marquez to them. It's up to them to launch it. Mm-hmm.
Would you know if anybody does turn it on? Like if some of your customers started using that open lineage writer, would you be able to be aware? And
technically with the writer, yes, from a telemetry point of view, but we are not basically poking around.
Not actively looking. Yeah.
But I mean that this actually provides quite a neat opportunity also to collaborate with you guys, because I think that we might be a nice vehicle to deliver data, right? And especially deliver data from variety of sources and such, because we are that data pipeline specialist, right? In a sense. So yeah.
Does it work for every single connector that you have? Like I think you showed the Snowflake one where it had the input tables and output tables. Does every connector follow that same pattern? Or are there some connectors that just don't really have lineage data that would come out of them?
For instance, this is a Google Sheets, right? So every single UI of the connector, the UI is part of the configuration of the connector. So it can use simple UI or it can use a richer UI, as you could see in that Google Analytics, which we try to get as closer to marketing people as possible, right? So simplified UI, but it's a part of the configuration. But there are standards how every single component works, which means we run it. We can scale the backend as per request, or you can actually use the parameter in orchestration to scale that backend if you want. So that's our newest addition, newest functionality.
Yeah.
And then each component is handling authentication, and we provide OAuth from the platform. And then how it handles it produces the log, and if there is an input mapping or output mapping, because that component lives in isolation. We run it, we spin up the Docker image, it runs. If it's an extractor, it extracts the data, and then there is a storage import job, which is then handed over to the platform, and the platform itself handles the grabbing data and also grabbing metadata about that job, and then we dissolve the whole Docker. So we basically have inflatable infrastructure, and we inflate it and then we kill it. So in the case of typical data pipeline, we actually spin up hundreds of Docker images and then we kill them immediately after we don't need them.
Yeah, I guess I was wondering, would there ever be a connector that didn't have any input mappings or output mappings, and therefore couldn't really produce any lineage, or a connector would always have one or both?
There will always be a job. There would always be a job. So at least a job. And then in Marquez, actually this one is a component. So this is a Snowflake transformation, right? So Here you see probably Python transformation. So again, each run, even though it does not produce anything, would be an icon in Marquez.
Yeah. Thanks.
And one last question for me, just because authentication came up. You said you would want Marquez to have some off model. Was that correct or?
Yeah, yes, that's correct. It's tricky though, because you offer a user management, and then immediately you have a request from a customer to offer a Google single sign-on. Once you offer single sign-on, they will ask, okay, do you support auth single sign-on, or do you support AD, right, Active Directory? So like the more you offer with the access or user management, the more you get requests about like different ways how to access. So especially from the enterprise world, where they would expect Active Directory or some crazy stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
So
yeah, it's like for when we run essentially Marquez, which is internally at Astronomer, there's API keys that we support, and Marquez out of the box doesn't support that, and we kind of recommend either you do authentication at the ingress level. So if you're going to connect and you're on your VPN, that would be good enough, because then you could kind of route it to Okta, and then you could interact with Marquez. But users, you might not want them to see certain metadata, and so some sort of access control is something that we know some users of Marquez would like to see, and but we haven't really. That has been our main focus at the moment.
Yeah.
So okay.
And it's a tremendous effort, to be honest, to put everything together. Yeah.
There's some open source toolings that we were looking at. I just forgot the name, but I know there's a couple issues that go in detail and some ways to add an off model to Marquez. So if you ever wanted to chime in on those issues, that'd be amazing.
Interesting. Yeah. There is also a value of basically Marquez providing the API endpoint for the lineage. So some kind of like custom integration where I could imagine having a Streamlit app that basically gives you the lineage based on the API, calling the API endpoint could be useful, and then in that case, you don't have to interact with Marquez directly within the UI, right?
Oh, yeah, I think the REST API, you can make a query for the lineage. And so
exactly.
Okay, yeah. And but have you looked at that API endpoint and played around with it?
I believe it's very similar to write /lineage and get /lineage, unless I'm mistaken. So that's my understanding of that API. So we only play that when we actually assess whether we should go this Marquez or open lineage route, and we just play with that within Jupyter notebooks, and it played what we expected, right? We even loaded in a NetworkX library as inside of our playground.
Hey, Martin, this is Naga. It's very good. Can I ask a question? So how do you use Marquez to enable data discovery, for example, to find out what data sets the data analysts or data scientists can use your product to make these templates or connections between these different heterogeneous data sources, right? Like, do you guys see any? There is a product called Amundsen in the market, which is. So do you see that you guys are interested to integrate Amundsen backend with Marquez? And that's one question. The second question is, so currently Marquez UI only shows the current state of the lineage graph, right? Current run or the last run. What about, let's say, if I'm the user of Keboola and I ran these templates and I want to see the graph of a, nth template or previous template, So how can I see that? Because the graph only shows the last run or latest run, you know?
This is a good question. At this moment, we are thinking about Marquez as something that can accompany what we actually see within our platform. Because as I showed before, literally every single table has its own events, and you can see, give me all the import export events, and we even stored all the attachments for the deltas. For some time, it's stored in a cold storage. But so this is a way how you can figure out which component or which user interacted with that table and how and whether there has been import or export. That means that load, unload, right? And alongside of that, there could be a Marquez basically displaying that big picture and such. At this point, we are looking at it as a complementary, use, at the moment. I think that we might even, go as far as basically drawing some of the lineage based on Marquez, basically giving us back the information about the lineage and such. Depends. I think that at this point, I think that there is some kind of collaboration needed between Marquez and some other tools. You mentioned Amazon to actually provide that discoverability, functionality. That would be my my opinion on that, because you really want to search through tags. You really want to search through descriptions, search through naming conventions and grouping and such, in order to see and in order to really find what you're searching for. I think that Marquez at this moment is more focused on, this is the lineage, this is how it's been represented, this is how it's been constructed and such. It's not that targeted towards the data discovery. And that's why I believe it has to be accompanied by some other tool as well, if it makes sense.
Yes, you're absolutely right. But is Keboola going in a direction to integrate, data discovery tool, or does it come natively? Because I see that your screen, it's more likely that if a data analyst wants to use it, maybe he will try to find out what data sets he has in the system, or tenancy, and then tries to use different templates, right?
Yeah, users use our search built in, so we do have a discovery built in. We also have that via API and such, but I will still believe that there is a strong case to a little bit designated discovery tools, as long as there is kind of like seamless integration with those. Because as I mentioned, you really want to see that from totally different angles, and even go as far as having a communication between different users and stakeholders about those data sets, about those events, about those jobs and configurations, right? And in this case, it would be quite a bit of effort to actually build everything from scratch, either within our platform or within Marquez. I believe that's why I believe it can coexist, as long as the integration is seamless. And that's why I believe that that open lineage is quite a strong, has a strong promise, because it can actually streamline this interconnection between different tools.
Yeah, and just to add to what, your response part, Amundsen currently supports open lineage, and the lineage backend that they use is Apache Atlas. We have had discussions with the Amundsen team kind of way back about using Marquez as the lineage component. So rather than querying Apache Atlas, you could query the Marquez backend. But it's just been in passing. But you're spot on in terms of what the integration points would be. But just wanted to add some context to your response.
Well, I believe that, me selfish, what I would like to see, if I may, is I want to see an endpoint of Amundsen where I can just feed open lineage and call it a day. I believe that would be the the most streamlined thing. And in this case, we would be able to basically recommend, hey, you can use Marquez, you can use Amazon, you can use either Amazon or Data Hub or some other tool. There's Manta and others, and they can coexist because we would be because we are collecting all of that metadata by ourselves because we are running that infrastructure, and we can just feed it in different directions, and those tools are interconnected. That would be the easiest way for us, and I believe even for the users.
Wow. Well, this is great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We do have another item on the agenda, and that's open discussion. So we have 5 minutes left. So are there any topics, questions that others would like to ask? Thanks again, Martin, for your time today. That was really exciting, and it was a great discussion.
Thank you as well.
I just wanted to comment that what you just said, Martin, is really aligned with the open lineage vision. I think I had seen an Amundsen community meeting a while ago when someone prototyped ingesting open lineage into Amundsen. We could dig that up. I think we can search for it. But yeah, this is exactly what we're aiming for.
Yep.
Okay. Well, on that note, I guess we can call it a meeting, and thank you everyone for attending. We look forward to seeing you next month, and look forward to seeing your contributions to the project in the GitHub repository and communicating on Slack. So until next month, thank you everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.